welcome to In the Rising podcast. My name is Bettina, and this is the platform I have chosen to share with you about living a life that is in complete alignment with your hopes, dreams, aspirations, and leaving behind that shame-blame game that we tend to get stuck in a cycle of over and over and over again. So I like to start off by saying that I am not a licensed counselor, psychiatrist, psychologist, any of those things. I am really just a healthcare practitioner who's had a lot of one-on-one time to just talk to people and be present with people who kind of have that moment where they can figure out what they've been doing. So I've mentioned it many times on this podcast, but one of the greatest regrets of people who are really facing their mortality, they either have a diagnosis that's very prevalent or they're really just moving on to the next phase. They regret living a life that was not in alignment with what they wanted to do. They were just frustrated that they lived according to the kind of quote unquote rules or what other people thought they should do. Basically what they were supposed to do and not what they really yearned for, but not what they had a passion for. So that is the entire premise of this podcast, but there's so many parts that come into play with that. And one of the things that I'm looking at now is this book that was gifted to me for my birthday. You Too Can Be Prosperous. And it talks about prosperity in many different facets. And one of the first things it talks about, or the authors talk about, is that to be a person that lives a prosperous life, you really do have to have a sense of self-worth and self-esteem in the first place. And so when you're coming from a place of lack, where you just think that everything is going to remain cloudy and dirty and not fulfilling, then that tends to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we tend to make things happen that cause us to be right. There's some research that backs that up, but we really want to be right? When we have a decision, we want the facts to correlate with that because we want to feel that we are able to make correct decisions, that we're able to make correct assertions, that we are on track. And so consciously, and here's where that quote comes in, there's the rub, unconsciously, we make decision after decision that may not be in our best interest. And why is that? And so when it comes to prosperity, there are different definitions of what that is. But yes, first and foremost, let's talk about the green stuff. Or depending on where you're listening, the blue stuff, the yellow stuff, but basically the money and that currency. And what is it that we can do to feel prosperous and actually to become prosperous? And I kind of gave it away just now that the disclaimer is, I will get spiritual on this one, but the disclaimer is that if we do believe that there is a higher being and that we are part of that, part of a greater being and not just, chess pieces, that we're part of this bigger picture, well, then we have a lot more demand on us. We have a lot more expectation. And that's where I go back to that quote, to whom much is given, much is expected. Well, if we are given enough to even have the opportunity to listen to this podcast, if we have the opportunity to just listen to things, watch YouTube, listen to, true news, fake news, whatever we want to say, if we're even in that place, then we already have a great deal of prosperity. And because it's our everyday thing that we see in front of us, we don't notice it. And that's where we can do things that I know I myself have been guilty of, and that's taking things for granted. So yes, I am talking about how all of our parents turned on the faucet and said, this is something I pay for. You take it for granted. Or that the electricity comes on for you to play your games. I just use that. Or that there's suddenly gas in the car. These things happen, but they don't happen by magic. They happen through work. They happen through budgeting. They happen through give and take. There's a cause and effect. So with all of that, what does that relate to prosperity? Well, why does prosperity just have to be at the point of the water comes out the faucet, that there's gas in the car? What about prosperity to the fact that you may be able to take that 1 week vacation or 2 week vacation? What about the fact that you can just sell this house and buy another house because you feel like it? Or the same with a car, buy something off, non-discount rack. What about being prosperous in many other ways? And I will even say that even in this country where I'm, recording in the United States, there are many people that will put off preventative care or just regular maintenance care because the copay is too much, because the $100, $200, $300 is just too much. Like, the prosperity of our own health relies and divides on the function of money. And so how is it then that we can have more of it? And a prosperous life of not just having more money, but more life. And having had the opportunity of working with a lot of people going through cancer treatment, quality over quantity was just highlighted over and over again. And so what are ways we can have more quality in life while enjoying the quantity of the time and enjoying the quantity of the things we are having around us to use? And the first thing is having a little bit of self-respect. Self-respect and kind of in that self-worth realm. If you think you are nothing and deserve nothing, then you expect nothing, and you will likely get nothing. It does start with that entire mindset, coming in from a place where you know that the nothing is unacceptable. And sometimes it's okay to get angry about that. Like, you know what? Nothing is not okay. And that is really called self-righteous anger. It is actually a good emotion. But to be in that place where you know that this is not it. And a lot of that comes to the fact that it just may raise your awareness of that where you are now that's comfortable may have been what you've been raised to believe, that your parents who were hardworking, who went without to give you something, that you live better than they did. And so you should just be quiet, shut up and suck it up, that this is okay. But what we don't realize sometimes, what we inherit from our families are not just our genetics, but also their mindsets. And this can definitely be, I guess, when our parents have had struggles in their own life, when they've gone without, walked both ways uphill in snow with no shoes to school. And we're like, okay, we're not going to do that. But the fact is we may be just as bound and just as irritated with having money or the idea of money as our parents do. This is something that keeps me on the other side of the tracks. This is something that separates me. I don't like money because it's kept me down. We didn't have enough. But having a good sense of self-respect in that money does not define you, but it sure can make things easier. To have a different view of it, to realize it is just currency. The money itself is not the problem. The money will flow. It's just having enough self-respect and self-awareness to be in the flow of the river. Instead of standing on the banks and being upset that it's not deciding to irrigate your field, but that you have to walk over towards that flow, that currency, that current of money. What can you do? And what is it that you've been gifted to do to walk in that direction? The second thing I want to talk about is deserving. And it does go back to, if we believe that we have a role to play, that we have, and this is my mindset and my certainly very deep belief, that we are here for a purpose. And if I'm supposed to do my purpose, then prosperity in my health, in my wealth, in my life can only add to my ability to move my purpose, to broaden my purpose. So why will I walk away from it? And so to understand that you deserve something does not mean this entitlement. And I certainly feel that we certainly have entitled people nowadays, and we all know exactly who they are. We don't even need to describe it. But having a sense of entitlement is not always a bad thing. Having a sense of entitlement, like, yes, I do expect that this will be my life when I'm 40, 50, 60. I do deserve to have that. And I'm not saying deserve it without working for it. I'm not saying deserve it without putting effort in, but that it is okay if it goes your way. Because there are people who are just as afraid of success as they are afraid of failure. So with that self-respect, understand that you do deserve prosperity and that you can also have that prosperity in your life in all aspects of it, emotionally and physically. In this book, where it talks about you too can be prosperous, they really talk about being back in a place of now. And I've talked about it several times. There's a book called Now by Eckhart Tolle. And, just being in this present tense, which is really hard. Like we're in our past thinking about what we could have done, what we should have done. We're in our future, what I hope it will be, what I envision. But what about this right now? And in that right now, having some grace for yourself and also having some gratitude for what you have and what is in the works for going your direction, what's coming for you. Having that place right here, right now, is an amazing place to be because this is someone's history. This is your history. This is the history of your great, great, great grandchildren that will never know that you existed. This is all in a bigger scheme. And so everything that you do has an effect on your life, but it has so many consequences. And being grateful for the place you are right now, knowing that it's going to help you grow to the next place. So far as R.C. Blakes, who I've mentioned many times, he is a pastor. You can find him on YouTube. You can find anything on YouTube. But he often talks about, that you don't go from glory to glory to glory. Sometimes you go from glory to setback because those setbacks are set up for something bigger and better. They're never fun. Well, they may be, but for the most part, none of us are excited about setbacks or places where I feel like I'm stagnant, I'm not moving. But what is it about this place right now that you're learning that you can take forward in your life so that when you have the more, you can move on to it? If you can handle the less, you will be given more. So that is it's been a very good place for me to stop every once in a while. Am I handling what I have now efficiently? Am I in a place where I can look at my current prosperity and my current health and my current mindset, my current patterns, my current habits? Are they leading me to a place to be prosperous in the future? Of course, I'm going to look at it from a financial standpoint. I am not even going to lie. But also so far as my health. I had a very good friend tell me, she's absolutely like the person who eats well, exercises almost every day, just moves her body. And I said, you put a lot of energy into all this. And she goes, it's not that I'm afraid of death. I just don't want to die slowly over the course of 20 to 30 years. I really just want to have that. And the healthier I am, the more likely that's going to happen. And I'm going to live a better life with more quality. And it did make me pause because that is also prosperity, that health to actually enjoy what you have around you. And that comes in all aspects. Prosperous with the time with your family and prosperous that you can take them wherever you want to, or they can take you, right? Prosperity goes in a circle. Sometimes you're giving and sometimes you're receiving. And in order to give to other people, We are also learning to receive. So in that place of being prosperous, you too can be prosperous. And I'm going to put that book in the notes below. And it really just is a nice little book that you can stop, read every morning, a couple pages, and it's just like, that's right. Or you stop and like, that's a good point. And it's small, so it's not, it's something you can read very easily. But it has these little nuggets of good information, golden nuggets, or, chocolate golden nuggets, even better, of good vibration to make your day a little bit better. Because prosperity does not start tomorrow, and it certainly doesn't start in a decade because poof, something happened. It starts right now, today, this instant, after this podcast. What are you doing and what are you allowing into your life to make you prosperous? And do you really believe that you deserve that? And at that point, evaluate if you do or do not. And then check out why. Because you do deserve it. You have enough self-respect to get there. And you are completely worthy of everything that you want to have your heart or your mind set on. And if you don't believe it, I'll just tell you so. So, all right, I wish you all a wonderful day again. And you know what? Until next Tuesday when I bring out another episode, I appreciate all the time you've given me. And until then, let's keep building one.